Hi, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the things that nobody tells you when it comes to building your WordPress website. I have been designing websites since 2015, and around 2018, 2019 is when I started developing WordPress websites. And there are some things that nobody tells you. And so I want to be the one to share with you some of the things that might help you along the way. And this includes whether you're going to DIY it or if you're going to hire someone, because these are things that you want to look out for. The first thing is about DNS. Nobody tells you that you have to become a sysadmin when you start to develop a website, right? It's kind of one of those things that's hidden in the background. In one of my previous videos, I have it linked in the cards above, I talked about hosting and domains, and that's stuff that you have to get a little bit familiar with regardless of whether you buy or DIY your website. And this is because DNS is really essential to getting people to see your website. So how it works basically is you buy a domain, you have a website, the two need to connect to each other so that when people go to www. whatever the name of your website is, they will be directed to an IP address. And you don't need to know what an IP address is just yet, but they will be directed to an IP address that hosts your website. Some of the things that help with knowing about DNS would be like going through Google Domains, or if you use a hosting provider, you can use their help desk if you're really unfamiliar with that. If you are going to purchase services from a web developer, then you will need to ask them about DNS domain setup. Ask them if that's part of their package. The thing no one tells you is that there's a plugin for everything in WordPress. And while this can be a great thing, it can also hurt you, because it will, if you have too many plugins, too many low quality plugins, then your site will be bloated. And you don't want that, because it slows your site down. And we're all about getting your customers there. Like, this is all because your customers need to get to your website quickly. Like, if your website doesn't load within 4 to 5 seconds, people will leave. So that's just something to think about. And a lot of plugins that are low quality will need to be removed, especially if these are plugins that you may have used once and you don't come back to them again. Then you need to get rid of them. If you try a plugin and you don't like it, delete it. Okay, don't have it sitting there in your dashboard just collecting space, because it will harm you in the long run. The third thing no one tells you about getting a WordPress website is that you need a mail client within WordPress. Now, the traditional WP mail is old and it doesn't really function like it should. And oftentimes, emails that come from WordPress to your email or to your customer's email can get flagged in spam. This does not take into account with WooCommerce orders and stuff like that. That's different if you're using WooCommerce, but just generic WordPress, you definitely need to use a plugin like WP Mail, SMTP, because that will help you funnel mail from WordPress to your email, or your customer's email. I personally use it on my WordPress site, and it has reduced the amount of mail messages coming from WordPress going into spam. But you still will get the occasional, this doesn't look safe, but it'll still come to your inbox. And you just have to say, I know it's safe, of course, because it's coming from your inbox. The fourth thing that nobody tells you is that, I don't want to put this out there like it's some bad omen. But in the event that your WordPress website goes down, you're going to need help. Okay? Whether you do DIY or you are hiring someone to do your website. And this is because this is software on the internet that has the capability to be hacked. It can crash, servers go down, all types of things can happen. You need to kind of be aware of the things that could potentially go wrong. For instance, your site crashing, you getting a virus, or getting the white screen of death. If you encounter any of those issues, then you're going to need help. And in some instances, you will need help more than Google can provide. You will need somebody who's an expert in this. So I would suggest either reaching out to someone in the WordPress community to kind of foster that relationship with. If you don't quite need them, now you're DIYing everything, then you just want to foster that relationship so that when you do need someone, you know, like, and trust them, you can get help when you need it. If you're paying someone to develop your website, ask them if they have a maintenance plan. And what this will do is help you get help when you need it before you need it. If your contractor has a maintenance plan set up, they will monthly go in, check your plugins, check your uptime, do any type of maintenance that needs to be done, and get ahead of problems before they get too big. And so that's just something to think about. Even if you DIY it yourself, it might not be a bad idea to get quarterly maintenance, a quarterly maintenance plan with someone that you trust. Which leads to my fifth thing that nobody tells you about, in that a WordPress website needs regular maintenance. My suggestion is to learn about, if you're going to DIY it, okay, we've already talked about what to do if you are hiring someone to do this. But if you're going to DIY it, set a schedule, monthly, quarterly, to review your website. And that's to check for viruses. And of course, there are plugins that help with maintenance. I won't go into all of them here because there are a ton. But I will say that there are plugins to help you with maintenance, but also you need to look at your website on the back end, not just if you're posting blogs or if you're updating pages, which is also a part of maintenance, but and removing outdated information, but you still need to do regular maintenance. And for people who even buy a website or get a website built for them, still maintenance is something that you will have to do. It's regardless of whether you use WordPress or any other website, it always needs maintenance. There are security issues that arise, new hacks or viruses that come about, new updates that come about to make your site more secure. These are all things that require regular maintenance, so you're going to have to look into them, as well as plugins. Plugins update along with the WordPress main update, so you need to be aware of those things as well. The sixth thing is plugin compatibility. It can be a bit of like going to the store and buying stuff that you don't need when you're not hungry just because it looks cool, right? But these plugins ultimately have to play together. Now, a lot of plugins are compatible with WordPress itself, but some of them may cause errors between each other if they are incompatible. And so you just have to be aware of that. Normally what will happen is your site will crash, and then you will have to uninstall each plugin to see where the issue was. And that can just be plugin incompatibility. But that's something that you just need to think about before you go into it. Just knowing and keeping, that goes in part with number 2, keeping your plugins light. You don't need as much as you think you do. And the last thing is keeping your website backed up. We talked about all the things that can go wrong if your website crashes, and this is where backups are really, really handy. And there's definitely a good amount of highly rated plugins that help with this. One that I personally use is a WP All-in-One Migration, and then one that is very popular is Updraft. And these just back up your website in the event of something going wrong. You can restore your website from a backup, and that's just help. I mean, that's helpful. You want to be able to do that because it reduces downtime. People, you don't have an issue getting back to normal if you have a backup in the event something goes wrong. And that's it. If you work in WordPress and you have a comment that you think will help the community in building their website, whether it's a plugin or something that nobody told you, leave it in the comments. Let's share and talk about these things so that we're all informed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you. I'll see you soon.